I'm delighted to say that Kelly Nicoll is back in the studio to answer some more of your questions. I'm really glad we didn't scare you off with the previous episodes. And
glutton for punishment.
So let's delve into some questions about learning and CPD. So first, let's look at learning. One of our listeners would like to know your view on online learning versus face-to-face learning in health and safety.
So there's absolutely place for both. I think my personal view is I love face-to-face training. I love delivering training, particularly at that kind of induction level, because it really sets out your kind of stall around the health and safety culture. They recognise that you're not this kind of big, scary, horrible health and safety professional that's going to shout at them and wag the finger at them all the time. And it gives kind of health and safety a bit of a face. Yeah. I actually love leaving them for the first kind of 10 minutes, and I ask 3 questions whenever I do an induction. And the first question is, what do you know about health and safety? The second one is, what's bad about it? And the third one is, what's good about it? And I leave them on a whiteboard, and I get the people who are doing the training to answer it. So you get all of those kind of stereotypes, and it's, it just means that the business is saving money on their insurance, and it means that they're not getting sued or they're not getting into trouble. And then you can have that real open and honest conversation about what health and safety actually is. So you get rid of that kind of stereotype from the word go.
It's a lot easier to do that face to face, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there is absolutely place for both. You know, some people do learn better on an online kind of virtual environment. Other people definitely learn better in that kind of face-to-face environment. Online learning means we have more access to lots more things. You know, we talked about it in a previous podcast around kind of like, even though we are 50,000 people across 130 different countries, that kind of online communities and all of that actually gives us the sense of being closer together and being a closer network. And it means that we can share that online learning across the world as well, which is really exciting. Online learning, we can do it in bite size, we can add gamification, we can add competitiveness and all of that kind of stuff. My worry with online training is always that people have a tendency just to skip it and don't actually absorb the information that we want. But not everybody has the operational time and resource to dedicate to, I used to have a full day of health and safety training on people's induction weeks. And that was always a real joy. We can also use online learning to recreate environments that we don't want to put people in initially. So if you work in construction or events or an environment where you're doing an awful lot of working at height and people think that they are okay at height, and then you put them in the virtual reality world and they know that they suddenly realise that they're not, that's much better to do it while they've got both feet flat on the floor than, I don't know, halfway up the Queen Elizabeth Stadium and having to get them back. Fire warden training, we can do that in a virtual environment now where people are making decisions about how they evacuate and they can see the smoke coming in and the change in visibility and not necessarily feeling the heat or anything, but we can really embrace that element of training and that virtual world to be able to recreate those scenarios without the risk of those scenarios. I've had fire wardens who have been trained really, really well, and when a real fire has been in front of them, panicked. I've had a fire warden throw a fire extinguisher at a fire.
Wow.
Which we might have been able to resolve with online training. So there is absolutely benefit to both forms, and I don't think it's a case of one over the other. I think there should absolutely be a blended version of all of it.
Okay, great. So another member asks how you see the artificial intelligence impacts on traditional ways of learning or teaching health and safety training.
I suppose that's a little bit of, what we just talked about around kind of virtual reality and things like that. I think there's quite a lot of the profession that's quite scared of AI and the implications of it. That future generations might be kind of less able to learn because they'll just, they just get everything off ChatGPT or whichever, version of that they're now using. And just, and especially with online learning, they could just go to that and that will tell them the answer, and they're not actually learning that information themselves. But AI is not going away.
No.
In the same way that I remember my teachers telling me at school, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket all the time, or you're not going to have this information at your fingertips. Well, Mrs. Hall, I've got it
Wrong.
You were very wrong. And while that's becoming more and more prominent, we need to be able to use it as a tool rather than it taking control of us. We absolutely need to be taking control of it and embracing it. I remember a couple of years ago, council spaces became available, and the amount of people that submitted their responses that were very obviously AI.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's such a shame.
Yeah.
Because actually, AI can be a really great base.
Yeah.
Like, I want to, I need to write this letter or I need to write this email, and then you can add yourself onto it, but it gives you kind of some of the salient points or some of the framework. And it's not going anywhere.
No.
So we may as well learn to live with it and use it to enhance our profession. It can improve processes, it can improve our knowledge, it can boost efficiency and productivity. It means I no longer have to remember every single word of the Health and Safety at Work, etc. Act 1974 and all of that kind of stuff. Like, it's there and it's a tool for us to make use of. But it's only as intelligent as the information that it's fed.
Absolutely.
And it is very much that adage, isn't it? You put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. And that's the same. But that was the same with the Industrial Revolution and the automation revolution and all of that. Like, we've always had those worries, but we've always ended up embracing it because that's what progress is. So I think we're also very, very acutely aware as, things like the NEBOSH diploma is no longer a sit down and write your answers. It's an open, you get 24 hours or 4 weeks or whatever to answer certain questions. And that worry that AI and that technology is used to kind of cheat the system or play the system a little bit is something that is absolutely a valid concern. But as AI grows and develops, we're also growing and developing those kind of AI detection systems. So as we change those kind of AI detection systems as well, like, that's where CPD comes in, which I keep going on about the importance of CPD, because as the world changes, we have to stay on top of it. Reverse mentoring means that I can learn from, the generation below that are really used to, online and AI, and I'm making use of it in a way that I'm probably not. And actually, that's going to make me a better professional as well.
Yeah. You mentioning about sort of using AI and the way we use AI reminded me of IOSH hosted a roundtable event last week at Westminster on the gig economy. And one of the invited MPs, it was a great quote, AI must remain our servant and not become the master. And that couldn't be more true, could it?
No, definitely. I also think it's still very important to say please to ChatGPT and AI, just in case.
I always do. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions around CPD. I know that we touched on this in one of the previous episodes, but why has the CPD system changed so much? It seems like IOSH are fixing things that are not broken. I know that there's been a substantial review of CPD recently, hasn't there?
Yeah, and I think as our profession has developed and shifted and changed, and the scope of what we do has increased, that CPD and that kind of framework that we use to kind of say these are competent health and safety professionals has had to change with it. The profession is not the same as it was when the Health and Safety at Work Act first came in.
That was 50 years ago.
Well, absolutely. And, we are not the same profession. Things have changed drastically.
And it's not the same world.
No, absolutely not. We're talking about increased heat everywhere. We're talking about the introduction of AI and robotics and that kind of fourth industrial revolution. I look at our future leaders and, there's the gender parity is considerably more equal in the future leaders groups than, or in the membership under the age of 30 than it is over the age of 30. And that is changing. And I think that's really important for us to continue to manage and continue to be able to proactively manage risk and not end up in a place where we are reactive. We should be proactive.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a huge amount of time or effort to keep your CPD up to date. Listening to this might be part of your CPD. And the blueprint is designed to support, like, here's all the technical elements, here's all the behavioral elements, here's all the soft skills and leadership skills that we would like a well-rounded health and safety professional to have. And I think that actually becomes really, really vital. Like, I did my diploma quite a while ago now, and the scenarios that I was going through in my diploma might not even really exist or might not be priority risks anymore. So being able to use that Blueprint 2.0 is for the modern health and safety professional. And I think that becomes really, really important. And I hear from a lot of our kind of much more experienced members, well, why should I continue doing it? And it's like, because, the world of work has changed so significantly. And if you don't keep up with your CPD, if you don't continue to learn, if you don't continue to reflect on how well you've done something or what you can learn from having done something, or seeing somebody else do it, or watching an episode of Ted Lasso, and all of that kind of stuff, like we are a learning profession. That's the joy of health and safety. You can go into any industry across the entire world and be faced with different challenges and different risks, and no day is ever the same, nor should it be. And that CPD process, for a lot of people, probably wasn't broken. But actually, for the newer members or the less experienced members who are coming in and going, what does it take for me to be not just good, but great at what I do? There is a framework. There is a competency element. And, none of us are great at all of it. And all of us have got elements that we want to work on and want to learn. But it gives us something to really aim for and really, really strive at. And I think that self-assessment element is actually really useful, because I think sometimes we probably think we're better than we are. Yeah. And sometimes we probably think that we're worse than we actually are. So having that self-assessment and being able to do that as a reflective piece on an annual basis is not a bad thing. You have performance reviews at work, you have KPIs, you have, strategy meetings, you reflect on how that performance has been across the year. Why would you not do that with your professional body as well?
Excellent, thank you. So another member asks, do you think that OSH professionals should be regulated to ensure competent advice is assured through maintaining CPD?
That's a really interesting question, isn't it? Because competency is different for everybody. And actually, what one person's competence, one person can be really, really great and really knowledgeable and really in-depth around, I don't know, asbestos or construction or events, or, and then somebody else can be a really, really great generalist where they've got a really good, not surface level, but kind of a decent depth across a huge, broad range of health and safety. And then other people are really, really great specialists and can go really, really deep into one very specific area of health and safety. So that element of kind of defining competency can be really difficult. And we know that competency is a mix of that kind of your skills, your knowledge, your accreditations, your experience, and it's not binary. It's, people have different strengths and different capabilities. I have a massive passion for training, massive passion for mental health and kind of well-being. Don't know as much around asbestos or hand-arm vibration. I know some, but it's not an area that has necessarily been part of my experience. And that competency fluctuates and changes over time. You know, when you're a health and safety advisor and you're starting off, you know a little bit about lots. When you get into kind of health and safety leadership or, you know, kind of director level or kind of head of level, you're looking at different competencies. You're not necessarily doing the operational stuff, but you're thinking about things strategically, and you're thinking about how health and safety fits into the wider context of a business, which is a very different way of looking at health and safety. And some of it's not measurable.
Yeah.
You know, communication skills is not measurable. Listening skills, presentation skills, being able to adapt your language to whether I'm talking to my finance team or talking to the operational team or talking to my COO who does not want to hear about health and safety legislation. He wants to know how I'm making sure that we're compliant, which is different to me talking to my facilities management team.
Yeah.
And, you know, organisations have different levels of maturity within the management of health and safety as well. So if you're in a business that is really reactive and just focused on incidents and preventing incidents, that's a very different competency level to one who is like, we want to go way beyond compliance. And it takes all sorts.
It absolutely does. Yeah. And everybody's unique, and that's the beauty of it. So we've got a couple of technology questions for you. One member asks, is there any chance IOSH could improve CPD logging by producing an app? As busy consultants, it would be fantastic to be able to log in your own CPD on the fly rather than trying to remember what we've done over previous weeks or months when accessing, updating the web portal. We talked about this in one of the previous episodes. Yeah, great idea. I know that it's been on the table.
Absolutely. And it's something that we continue to talk about, is how much easier it would be to have an app. Whether, you know, it is absolutely something that is coming down the road. It might not be here like immediately, but it is definitely something that is being looked at and is being discussed about how we can make it even easier for our people to, or for our members to log their CPD. Because I think the easier we make it, the easier that 30 hours just chips away.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing is, though, I find if you're doing something like that, sort of reflection and writing something and logging something on an app, do you necessarily take as much care and time with things like that than sitting down at your laptop and doing it on a web-based browser?
I think that's a really interesting question. And I suppose the way you answer that is suck it and see.
Yeah.
And actually, I like taking that little bit of time every, you know, kind of once a month. I take that little bit of time. I sit down with, you know, a nice coffee, whether it's out in the garden or it's, you know, sat at my desk at work, and take that time to reflect. So I think for some people, that kind of element of taking that time out of their kind of week or their month to be actually sit and reflect is really important. Some people are really quick reflectors and want to do it while it's still in their mind. I know the older I'm getting, the more likely if I don't dedicate time to it, it definitely falls out of my brain. And yeah, I think let's suck it and see. I think if the members want an app, then, you know, let's see whether we can get one in development.
Okay, so finally, let's talk about OSH development around the world. One of our members is a safety professional from Saudi Arabia and sent in a question to ask, how can IOSH better support the development of OSH standards and leadership pathways in the Gulf region? And what advice would you give to professionals from emerging markets who want to influence the global OSH agenda?
So, having spent a bit of time in the Gulf region this year, I was privileged enough to be in Dubai in January and then Riyadh in May. And like, the OSH profession is definitely developing out in the Gulf. My biggest piece of advice for people who want to get involved in that kind of global influence is get involved in your local branch, get involved in your local community. You know, there's quite a few of the guys out in the Gulf who sit on the council.
Okay.
And they're really, really passionate about what they do. They fully recognise that health and safety is a developing profession over there. And it is something that is becoming more and more apparent that they really do need. So come and get involved. Like, go and find your community. Go and find your online community. Go and if you're emerging or kind of a less experienced or just starting out in your profession, join the Future Leaders Steering Group. Like, those guys are phenomenal. I am so, honestly, I can't tell you how jealous I am. Like,
that wasn't around. Yeah.
Because I look at, they're hosting webinars, they're talking strategy, they're really getting they're like rolling their sleeves up and really getting involved. And the confidence that brings for them it's phenomenal. Like, it's going to be terrifying. I'm the youngest Irish president we've ever had. Like, that's not going to be the same in 10 years.
No.
Like, there's going to be somebody like who celebrates their 30th birthday during the presidency. I hope so.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing, is as a profession, we're shifting. Half of our membership is over the age of 50. Like, the youngsters have got to come in. And this is why I think as well the health and safety profession has naturally shifted from this kind of very technical profession to a profession of care. And shifting that language makes it more attractive. But yeah, I think if you are in kind of that emerging kind of kind of environment, like, learn from countries that have been there and done that and made mistakes and reacted to it and pivoted and changed. Like, let's not be making the same mistakes everywhere. And if you want to be involved in the global health and safety agenda, come and get involved at IOSH. Like, come and volunteer for us, whether it's in your local community, whether it's on the slightly larger platform around council or even the presidential team. Like, just come and get involved.
So how can you get employed for a job if you're a female OSH professional in the Middle East with, say, a master's degree in health and safety management?
So, I was really fortunate enough to spend an evening with the Minister for Public Health over in Saudi. And I sat next to the head of occupational health for the Department of Public Health for the Saudi government. She's a 32-year-old Saudi woman.
Wow.
Oh, she is incredible. And I think the culture is starting to shift. I'm the first female president to have been to Saudi, and I spoke on panels. I had health and safety professionals from Saudi and from the wider Gulf come and speak to me. I spoke with ministers. Like, the culture is shifting, and I think that what you do is you apply and you keep applying, and you find yourself a mentor, hit the communities up. Do you know, like, go and hit the communities up in the Middle East, because they may have a position available as an apprentice. They may know somebody within their network that is looking for somebody. There are opportunities as well outside of potentially your region where, you could get, a working visa and come and learn somewhere else as well. I think that it's one of the really exciting things is we have, IOSH has its jobs board. We're also now, there's also an apprentices board that is coming, which I'm really excited by. Like, the world is shifting quite considerably. There are virtual jobs, in health and safety. There are roles that you can do working from home, wherever that may be, and, build that network and that community around you. Find like-minded people. Some health and safety professionals find their job through their IOSH branch, or through their IOSH community. I'm looking for somebody. No, I'm not looking for anybody. My team's full at the minute, but go and talk to so-and-so. They might have a position open. Like, don't be afraid of networking. I think oftentimes as health and safety professionals, we aren't very good at tooting our own horns. We're not very good at kind of going, look at all of this amazing stuff that I'm doing. Like, feel the fear and do it anyway. Especially as a woman, like, feel the fear and do it anyway, because like nobody else is going to do it for you.
I've got one more question about women actually in construction. Do you think women should be paid more? Is there scope to introduce an annual women and construction grants? Because high-risk jobs roles generally come with higher salaries, understandably. A woman working in construction will have higher risk of microaggressions, sexism, harassment. There's a lot of talk about that at the moment. It's really, this member says it's really hard to promote this role to such a role to girls in schools in this situation. As the number of women in construction increases, the pay rate can level with men, incentivise and be honest that it's not an easy job until men and the construction industry reframe minds and improve diversity in the workforce. That's a lot to get your head around, but what are your thoughts on that?
It's a really interesting question, and it's one that I've been mulling over for quite a while, actually. The health and safety profession is male-dominated.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we get paid more.
No.
I have worked in construction, and I have worked, in fact, throughout most of my career, I've worked in male-dominated environments. It takes a certain type of woman. You have to have a certain level of thick skin, but you also have to become very comfortable at calling poor behaviour out very quickly, because the more you let it happen, the more it will happen.
Yeah.
The construction industry is not on its own with that problem. I was in, broadcast and sports officiating, very, very male dominated, very young men as well, who perhaps haven't quite yet learned how to behave in the professional world. You kind of get into this kind of element around kind of positive discrimination, which makes me feel awkward.
Yeah.
Because I would never want to be in a position where somebody has the opinion of me that I haven't earned my role, and that the only reason I'm there is because I'm a woman or because I'm filling a quota. And I fully recognise that comes from a place of privilege as well. But yeah, and I like if we want equity,
It's got to be across
it's got to be across the board.
Yeah, I agree.
And men are, statistically, men are paid more than women are. We know that there is still a gender pay gap. We know that, women are still discriminated against, but those microaggressions, unfortunately, happen everywhere. It is something that, as women, disappointingly, frustratingly, infuriatingly, we still experience. The first time I walked into a IOSH branch, I doubled the number of women and reduced the average age by about 20 years. And even sitting on a committee, the microaggressions, the passive-aggressive comments, the things that you have to deal with as a woman, it's not just in the construction industry. My sister is a consultant. She works for the NHS. And she called out a set of minutes, literally this morning, called out a set of minutes where every other doctor that was in that meeting was referred to by their professional title. So Dr. X, Dr. Y, Dr. Z. My sister was referred to as her first name. She called it out immediately. I suggest that we take these minutes and we refer to everyone with their professional titles. And the NHS is female dominated, and it still happens. It is an ongoing and continuing argument and a continuing fight. And I don't necessarily think that providing specific grants or incentivizing women to go and do specific jobs because we get paid a little bit more, I think that actually has the potential of doing us a disservice.
Yeah. I completely agree. Thank you so much for joining us today in the podcast studio, Kelly, and for your bravery in answering anything from the membership.